time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to take the call while you consider that matter. Mr. Speaker, I very happily speak in favour of this piece of legislation. It has been of concern to me for some time, the lack of progress the House has made in the time that I have been here on dealing with gambling harm reduction measures. We had a debate fairly early on in my time as a parliamentarian when we discussed the Gambling Amendment Bill No. 2, which was at the time in the name of the then Minister Richard Worth, and it hasn't made any progress at all, I don't think, since Mr Worth left the Parliament. But we had a useful exchange of ideas around some of the issues that should be addressed. We shouldn't be blind to the fact that gambling has a significant harm in our local communities, causes significant harm, and I think the House does need to reflect on where we've got to over the course of several decades since pokie machines were introduced into New Zealand. We do have a situation now where a number of community groups rely on the proceeds of gambling in order to fund themselves. We're talking sports clubs, we're talking charities, we're talking a number of groups that we value the contributions of that are now relying on the proceeds of gambling in order to function. And I actually think there's a very salient comment made by the Methodist Church in an opinion piece in the Christchurch press recently, and I want to quote directly from it: "No decent society should fund its sports, recreation and commercial activities from the pockets of its poorest citizens." And I actually think that that's quite a legitimate thing for them to say. It is a sentiment that I strongly agree with. Of course, there's no instant solution that we can reach here about it. I think this bill's a useful contribution to the debate that we should be having, but we can certainly make sure we don't make the situation any worse. And I think it's incumbent on all of us here as parliamentarians to accept the fact that we do have a problem with gambling in New Zealand at the moment, and we have a problem with the system that we have set up around gambling at the moment, and we can at least not make it any worse. And that is why I am very concerned that while the National Party shed crocodile tears around problem gambling today and voting in favour of this bill, they're about to go out there and do a deal with the biggest gambling company in this country, the biggest gambling outfit in this country, the Sky City, to build a convention centre that will be funded by the poorest citizens in our country. This will be funded by the poorest citizens in our country. That's right, I did spend a week at Sky City because I wanted to find out firsthand exactly what was going on there, and I did find out by spending the time there, and I can say that having seen what goes on there, I don't think that the decision that they are taking to expand the gambling opportunities at Sky City in exchange for their sweetheart deal for a convention centre is the right thing to do. And in fact, there are other options on the table there. John Key stopped officials working on other options to fund the convention centre because of the dodgy deal that he reached with the Sky City Casino. I think that is fundamentally wrong. It is morally corrupt. And I think it's a disgrace that the National Party, whilst shedding crocodile tears in favour of this legislation, which is good legislation, are then going to go ahead, on the other hand, and expand gambling opportunities at the Sky City Casino. I don't think that's right. I think that's fundamentally wrong, and I think that the government should be ashamed of themselves for that. The Labour Party, we stand behind our track record when it comes to gambling, because in 2002 we did take measures, we did take steps to reduce the harm from gambling in New Zealand, including introducing the sinking lid on pokie machines that John Key now says is going to reduce the number of pokie machines we have overall, even though they're increasing them at Sky City. Well, actually, I reckon that's the wrong position for him to take, because we should have fewer pokie machines around the country, and that doesn't mean that we should reduce them in one area so that he can prop up his mates at Sky City by putting more pokie machines in at Sky City. I think that is fundamentally wrong, and I think the government should be ashamed of themselves. Problem gambling causes huge social harm. It causes huge social harm, and I don't believe that we should be expanding gambling opportunities, expanding the opportunity for that harm to take place so that the government can get a convention centre, which they could get in other ways. And in fact, there was work going on. There was work going on, commissioned by John Key, until he got a better offer from Sky City, and then he cancelled consideration of any other option for a convention.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. Members, the Honourable Trevor Mallard brought up. I'm ruling. The Honourable Trevor Mallard brought up the matter of a conscience vote, and I have sought advice. The practice has been adopted is for members to raise the matter of a conscience vote in the Business Committee in order that the Speaker may consider whether a conscience vote should be held and advise the whips accordingly. As this practice has not been followed in this case, I don't believe a personal vote should be held on this occasion. I'm very mindful of Standing Order 141, which talks about a personal vote may be held following a party vote if a member requests one and the Speaker considers that a decision on a party vote is so close that a personal vote may make a material difference to the result. So that's the ruling, point of order, the Honourable Chairman.
And I would like to contest not the result, not your decision, sir, because I think 141 is going to be. There's going to be no doubt about the closeness of it. But, sir, I think it is important that we don't yet accept the rationale that you have used, and that is the practice of bringing matters to the Business Committee. The Business Committee is written into the standing orders in a number of ways, and there are some rights and obligations of members with regard to the Business Committee, and there have also been some customs that have developed. But, sir, the right of a member to indicate that for them a matter is a conscience matter, to address that to the Speaker in this House around the time of a vote and after the party vote 140 to ask for a personal vote, sir, it appears to, on the standing orders, to be untrammelled. I accept it as it's a two-part thing. The Speaker's got to decide it's a conscience issue, and then it's got to be close. And I think the standing orders are clear on this, and I think it would be unfortunate if there was a ruling that stood which said that effectively, because it had not been raised with the Speaker or it had not gone to the Business Committee, the rights of members under standing orders, which are very clear on the face of them, were not going to be upheld.
Yep. I'll hear Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just in considering the points that the member, Mr. Mallard, has made, I wonder if you would also consider Speaker's ruling 69.6 from the former Speaker, Mr. Kidd, who said that the fact that the House on a party vote might divide rather closely, in and of itself, does not constitute sufficient reason for there to be a personal vote. It's clearly not intended by the standing orders that there should be one just because it's close.
Yes, speaking further point of order.
I'll hear the Honourable Premier.
And I might be getting my time wrong, but I think Mr. Speaker Kidd might have predated the standing orders that we are talking about. Yes. And I think I can almost remember the circumstances. And that was not an area that was an area of conscience. It was a debate. It's not one of the traditional conscience areas. It was one where it was felt that there might have been a few members at the time of the National Party who didn't support the particular line of the government. And if the members probably a little bit before the member's time, but in those days, people had to line up. Previous to that, people had to line up and actually say what they said.
Thank you. Well, I stand by the ruling I made before, but I just bring to members' attention 139, and it clearly states here that where the Speaker considers that the subject of vote is to be treated as a conscience issue, the Speaker will permit a personal vote to be held instead of a party vote. So that's Standing Order 139. It makes it very clear that the Speaker makes the decision But the member is correct, and we don't want to override through the Business Committee that takes precedence over what is in standing orders, and I accept what the member has brought to our attention. And of course, it's always open for a member to call for a personal vote. We now have the last speaker, Nikki Flavel.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for the opportunity.
No, we've still got another speaker before the right of reply.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Just seeking clarification around that. Does it stand then, according to that ruling, that once a determination has been made, say for the first reading, does that determination then deemed to continue through all phases, or is there an opportunity to check in with Business Committee at second and third readings if it gets to that?
Yes, it's not. The ruling that I'm making now is not binding the House to a further position when we come back to committee stages or through second and third readings. I call Nikki Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the gambling